Okay, so I wanted to review Flat Out for this week, but I realized there is a severe lack of Koei games on my channel, so I decided to review Romance of the Three Kingdoms 11. Many of you might not know the ROTK series, but it's okay since a majority of you probably don't know at least half of the games that I review. Regardless of this inconvenient truth, let's get this review started. In a nutshell, ROTK 11 is a turn-based strategy game where you take control of a ruler during the late/end of the Han Dynasty. Your goal is to unite the land under your rule. It'll involve building facilities, building and maintaining your army, hiring officers, diplomacy, and a bunch of other factors that really make it one hell of a package. Unless you have played a game in the ROTK series, I highly recommend that you start off with the tutorial. This game is not for the faint of heart, and it has a bit of a steep learning curve, but the tutorial does a great job in explaining the game's features and mechanics. Now, after the tutorial is completed, it is time to jump into the game. You have 8 scenarios to choose from, as well as some preset scenarios that make you play as a specific ruler. The goal of uniting the land is the same for each, but the way you reach that goal certainly varies for each scenario. My personal favorite is the rival warlords one, since it sets everyone in a fairly equal playing field. If you created an officer, which we will get to later, you can either make him/her a ruler or select one of the rulers from the time period. Here, I created an officer named Lotsu Fei, and he will be the hero of chaos, just with a little bit more benevolence. By the way, there's a crap ton of options to play around with. I mean, holy cow. You can make the gameplay as close to history as possible, or give it a more fictional approach. Officers can die often in battle or very rarely, sorcery can be involved, and whatever else you would like to see. When you start out a scenario, you are given an intro video that puts you right into the time period. Here, you get a taste of the beautifully done paintings along with the well-crafted music. In addition, you learn a little bit about the history of China, so thumbs up to any game that teaches me something. Some scenarios like the Yellow Turban Rebellion start off with some dialogue between the characters of the time period to help with the immersion factor, setting the tone for the rest of your conquest. It also helps to see the state of foreign affairs between the different factions. At the start of all scenarios, you'll have the smartest dude in your group, aka the strategist, tell you what's going on, such as who are your allies, who are your enemies, and so on. Whew, so there's a lot to talk about here, so let's just start with the beginning. If you don't have a strategist, it is advised that you get now, as he/she will tell you who is the best fit for a particular task. Next, focus on domestics, as you need to get that in order, so build up farms to get food and build markets to get income. Build granaries to increase productivity of the farms, while mints increase productivity of the markets. Once that is completed, it's time to build up your army, so build up a barracks to recruit some men. Don't forget to drill them to keep their will up, as well as perform inspections to maintain order. But you can't just send them out to battle with just swords, so properly outfit your troops with spears, pikes, cavalry, crossbows, and artillery. But you can't just send anybody out there, right? So you need the right commander to lead the troops. You can find these commanders through events, by searching towns, or by seeking out to employ them. It is important once you find these guys to have them perform tasks to prove their worth and give them promotion so they are able to command more troops on the battlefield. So, did you get all that? No? Well, once you play this game, you'll get the hang of it. Trust me. So, enough with the domestics, let's focus on the military aspect. To start fighting, you need to march your troops by picking out your officers that will lead, along with the weapons your troops will use. Depending on the compatibility of the officer with a certain weapon, it will determine how well the unit can use its tactics. Each weapon has its own unique benefits, such as crossbowmen being able to attack from 2 squares away, cavalry move more spaces, weaponry is good for buildings, and so on. One thing I find pretty cool is that the AI tries to counter with what you have. For example, if you have a cavalry unit approaching upon an opposing city, the enemy will dispatch spear troops since spear beats cavalry. The strategy, however, is much more in-depth than that, as a simple rock, paper, scissors strategy could easily get you killed if you have the wrong officers. A cool thing to note is how relationships between officers can benefit you in battle. If the attacking officer has its family members or friends in nearby units, they will follow up an attack with their own, while still letting them make their own decision, giving you basically a free hit. When either defeating officers in duels, taking over a city, or just pure chance, you will sometimes capture them. They can be recruited, put as prisoners, let go, or my favorite, executed. Most of the time they won't join you, but if the faction is severely losing, it might be your chance to swoop in and take. Just like in Total War Medieval 2, it is satisfying as all hell to finally take over a city, as you have tirelessly slogged for hours, dealing blow after blow, just to finally get that next piece of land to continue your conquest. Naval battles are in this game, but they are kind of useless. Sure, you can build up warships to make yourself stronger on water, but it's kind of pointless since most of your battles take place on land. I wouldn't really call it a wasted opportunity since there isn't much water covering China anyways, but I like the fact that you don't need to load your units onto a transport. That would have been really tedious if you needed to do that. Now, let's move on to duels. For many, this feature alone makes the game worth playing, and I do see their point. These occur when you challenge someone, if you're challenged yourself, or during special events. When fighting, you pick your stance, either attack, defense, spirit, or fury. Attack and defense are pretty self-explanatory, while spirit increases your special meter and fury is a low percentage critical hit. Filling up your special meter will allow you to perform special moves, of course. Having certain items will allow your officers to perform other special moves such as faking a retreat or hitting them with a throwing knife. Some of the officers have special models for them such as Pow3rh0use, Lu Bu, Taishitse, Huangshong, and many others. Honestly, these are all pretty damn fun. Personally, I prefer the duels in X, the game before this one, but these are still pretty well done. My problem is how there's very little input minus the stance and special moves. If you have another officer, this is a side note, but if you have another officer in the unit, they can join in to fight a little bit, but sometimes I find it kinda cheap as you can easily outnumber enemy officers. It's a strategy to use, but it can easily be overused. The next one that isn't all that impressive are the debates. Visually, they are awesome as it shows a battle of the minds at play along with the symbolic nature of the pillars. It is almost as if they are fighting in an ethereal plane for intellects. But enough philosophy, how do these things play out? Each player plays a card. The one with the stronger card wins and the other loses some health. The strength of the card is determined by the number on the card. However, you can have a stronger card and still lose if your card does not match the topic in the middle. There are also some special cards to play, and getting pissed off makes you better. Depending on your personality, it'll grant different benefits when you're just mad. These are okay, but they happen way too often. You are always debating with others to recruit them on your team. Also, it is way too based on luck. If your cards don't match up the topic, you are at a serious disadvantage. Sure, you can refresh your cards every so often, but there is still a possibility to end up with bad cards, even if you are the smarter one of the two. Creating your officer is a very simple process, and I recommend you do this at least once. When you create an officer, you can do it automatically or manually. From here, you can write their name, pick their portrait, pick when they were born, how long their lifespan is, who their father is, who their spouse is, their close friend, people they like, people they dislike, sports they played in high school, whether or not they ate their vegetables when they were young, if they experiment with hallucinogens, if they like to watch Powerhouse on YouTube, and of course, if they still wear diapers. All joking aside, there's a lot to customize here. The most important aspects in my opinion though are the attributes. Leadership and war are important for battle, while intelligence and politics are good for domestics. Charisma is good to help recruit and find new and talented officers. You can also see their skill with each unit type, which will determine how good they are with using said unit. Diplomacy is another aspect that I haven't talked about. Most of the time, people will come to your place asking for their prisoners back or for a ceasefire. It's a good way to get some extra gold by exchanging prisoners and to possibly get some of your officers back. The only way to improve relations with someone is to provide them with money. This can prove to be extremely expensive and pointless since there are other factions that can disrupt your relations with others if they choose to do so. However, I did become friendly enough to Gonsung Sang, where I was able to force him to surrender for us to become one faction, gaining all of his territories and officers, avoiding a war in the north. So once you unite all territories, which will take at least 20 plus hours, you will get an ending showing what happened during your rule. This depends on whether or not you became emperor, the strength of your military, and a few other little things. Unfortunately, this game only has 3 endings, which is a bit disappointing for me considering that ROTK 10, the one before this game, had a whole slew of different endings. Whew, so that was Romance of the Three Kingdoms 11, and honestly, there was a lot I didn't mention. I didn't talk about the coming of age for officers, how you can research better tech, people that ask to join you, whether or not you want to become emperor, naming your kingdom, and a bunch more. It's just a very content-filled game, and that's what I love about Koei. Their games might not always have the highest production values, but they make sure you are busy while you play and give you a lot for your money. While I do prefer ROTKX because you can play as an officer, this game is still amazing, and it is easy for me to highly recommend it, especially to fans of turn-based strategy and 4X strategy games as well. This was a very long review, and I hope you guys stuck around for the end. I really appreciate the support, and as always, this is Pow3rh0use signing off.